You set a goal. You feel that surge of motivation, that crystal clear vision of the person you want to be. You decide to save money, so you make a budget. You want to get healthy? You join a gym. You hope for a loving relationship, and you go on a date with someone who seems, well, just about perfect. And then you watch yourself do it. It's like you're a passenger in your own body, making a series of tiny, seemingly harmless choices that steer you straight into a wall. You order the expensive takeout. You skip the gym because, well, it was a long day. You pick a fight over nothing and push that incredible person away. And just like that, you're right back where you started, standing in the wreckage of your own best intentions, asking that same soul-crushing question, why do I keep doing this to myself? You might chalk it up to bad luck, a lack of willpower, or a deep character flaw. But what if the reason is deeper, more complex? What if there's a hidden part of you, a silent partner in your mind, that doesn't actually want you to succeed? What if this part of you isn't an enemy to be crushed, but a messenger to be understood? The pioneering Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung had a name for this hidden part, the shadow. Jung believed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is a journey into that darkness. We're going to explore how this powerful hidden force engineers your self-sabotage, and more importantly, how you can begin the brave work of bringing it into the light. So, what is self-sabotage really? It's any action, thought, or habit that undermines your own goals and happiness. It's the maddening paradox of wanting one thing and consistently doing the exact opposite, and it wears 1,000 different masks. It's the procrastination that turns a fear of failure into a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's the perfectionism that sets the bar so impossibly high that you're frozen, guaranteeing you never have to risk creating something that's just good enough. It's the imposter syndrome whispering that you don't deserve what you've earned, making you feel like a fraud who's about to be found out. In relationships, it's pushing people away when they get too close, testing their love, because, deep down, you don't feel worthy of it. Maybe you cling so tightly out of a fear of abandonment that you choke the very connection you crave. Or, you reject a good person before they can reject you just to feel in control of your own heartbreak. In our careers, it looks like missed deadlines, avoiding big projects, or staying in a job you can't stand. That's because the terror of chasing something more, it feels worse than the misery you already know. In our health, it's the cycle of comfort eating or substance use, a quick fix for an emotional ache that only creates more pain. We often give these behaviors the wrong labels, calling it laziness or a lack of willpower. But that's a deep misunderstanding, really. Self-sabotage is rarely a conscious wish to fail. On a psychological level, it's often a twisted act of self-protection. The very things we do to sabotage ourselves, they often feel good in the moment because they help us dodge difficult feelings or the anxiety of real change. They're outdated survival strategies that may have helped us once, but are now holding us hostage. Modern psychology and neuroscience, they've shown these patterns are complex, tied to our brain chemistry and learned behaviors. But the core question isn't, how do I stop being lazy? The real question is, what am I trying to protect myself from? The answer isn't in a motivational quote or a new productivity app. It's in the vast, hidden world of the unconscious mind, a territory first explored by Carl Jung. To solve a problem as deep as self-sabotage, we have to go right to the source, and for that, we turn to Carl Jung. Jung wasn't just a psychiatrist, he was an explorer of the human soul. He dedicated his life to drawing a map of our vast, mysterious inner world, convinced that the keys to both our greatest pain and our greatest freedom were hidden there. Jung gave us the game-changing idea of the unconscious mind. He argued that our conscious mind, the part we think of as me, the part that plans and worries, It's just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface lies the immense, unseen bulk of the unconscious, a place that holds our forgotten memories, hidden feelings, and powerful instincts that secretly steer our lives. Jung then split the unconscious into two layers. First, the personal unconscious. This is where your own unique life experiences are stored, the memories, traumas, and feelings you've personally repressed. But beneath that, he identified something even bigger, the collective unconscious. He believed this was a deeper, universal layer we all share as humans, a kind of psychic inheritance, packed with ancestral memories and universal symbols he called archetypes. Think of the hero, the mother, the trickster, ancient patterns that quietly shape how we see the world. So why does this matter for self-sabotage? Because as Jung famously said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Your conscious goals, to be healthy, loved, and successful, are constantly being swayed and often sunk by these powerful hidden forces. You think you're at the helm of your ship, but the deep currents of the unconscious are pulling you in a different direction. From a Jungian view, self-sabotage is what happens when your conscious goals go to war with unacknowledged parts of your unconscious. It's a sign of a divided self. There's a battle raging inside you, and the first step toward peace is to know who's fighting. And the most important figure in this inner conflict, the one most often responsible for our self-defeating behavior, is a powerful character that lives in the dark. Jung called it the shadow. Imagine a locked room in the basement of your mind. Inside, you've shoved every part of yourself you've ever judged as unacceptable. It's where you keep your shame, your rage, your envy, your greed, and all your raw, untamed desires. It's filled with every trait you were taught was bad or weak. This dark room is what Jung called the shadow. The shadow is our dark side, not because it's evil, but because it's made of the undeveloped parts of us we try to hide from the world and from ourselves. It's the self we've disowned. We start building the shadow as children. When we learn which behaviors get us praise and which get us punished, we craft a conscious identity, a persona that's acceptable to everyone else. Anything that doesn't fit that neat mask, our raw anger, our fierce ambition, our secret vulnerabilities, gets shoved into the unconscious. But here's the crucial part. Those rejected pieces don't just vanish. As Jung warned, what you resist persists. The more you deny and ignore these parts of yourself, the darker and more powerful they become. They don't just sit there quietly. They fester, build up energy, and fight to be seen. This is the dark psychology of self-sabotage. Your shadow, desperate for your attention, finds ways to erupt into your life. It hijacks your behavior, especially in moments of great opportunity, to create situations that force you to finally look at what you've been ignoring. Your self-sabotage is often your shadow's desperate attempt to talk to you. It's a cry for wholeness. How does this actually play out? Imagine a man who's been taught that showing vulnerability is weak. He represses his sensitive side, locking it in his shadow. He builds a persona of being stoic and in control. Then, he gets into a loving relationship. As intimacy grows, he feels a profound, unconscious terror. His shadow, holding all that forbidden vulnerability, bursts out. He starts fights, becomes emotionally distant, and, well, he sabotages the relationship. Consciously, he has no idea why. Unconsciously, though, his actions are designed to destroy that intimacy. The very intimacy that threatens to expose the weakness he's spent a lifetime denying. Or consider a woman taught that being ambitious is unfeminine. Consciously, she wants a simple life. But her powerful, repressed drive is alive in her shadow. She ends up in a job far below her abilities and becomes chronically passive-aggressive, subtly undermining her boss and missing promotions. Her self-sabotage is the twisted voice of her buried ambition, screaming against the cage of the small life she's built. She doesn't want to fail. Her repressed ambition is trying to destroy a life that's too small for it. Ever find yourself stuck in the same destructive loop? That's your shadow at work. It's not your enemy. It's a part of you demanding to be seen. As Jung wrote, you don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Your self-sabotage isn't a flaw, it's a map. It's pointing right to the door of your shadow, inviting you to finally turn the key. If the shadow is the dark territory inside us, then complexes are the emotional landmines buried there. Jung's idea of complexes gives us a more precise map for finding the triggers that set off our self-sabotage. A complex is an emotional knot in your mind, a tangle of memories, feelings, and ideas wrapped around a central theme, usually from your past. Think of it like a glitch in your psychological software. When something happens in the present that resembles the theme of that complex, it gets activated, and you have a massive emotional overreaction. The complex hijacks you, making you act in compulsive and self-defeating ways. Everyone has complexes. It's a normal part of being human. But, as Jung famously said, everyone knows that people have complexes. What is not so well known is that complexes can have us. When you're in the grip of a complex, you're not in control anymore. This is where the link to self-sabotage becomes clear. Many of our most stubborn patterns of self-destruction are driven by a complex being triggered. Let's say someone grew up with a hypercritical parent and developed a failure complex, a core belief that they're destined to fail. Now, as an adult, this person gets a big promotion. Consciously, they're thrilled. But this new opportunity to succeed, that's what triggers the failure complex. A storm of unconscious anxiety washes over them. To escape the feeling, they start procrastinating, and their work gets sloppy. They engineer their own failure. Why? Because failure, while painful, is familiar. It's comfortable. It confirms the complex's core belief. See, I told you, you're not good enough. In a twisted way, failing feels safer than succeeding, and dismantling a core part of their identity. Have you ever had an emotional reaction that was completely out of proportion to what happened? That's a huge clue that a complex was triggered. A boss makes a casual comment, and you spiral into self-loathing. A date doesn't text back right away, and you drown in feelings of abandonment. These aren't random sensitivities. They're signposts, pointing directly to your complexes. They're the puppet masters, pulling the strings of your self-sabotage. Figuring them out, that's a massive step toward taking back control. To understand why we self-sabotage, we have to look not just at what we hide, but also at what we present in the light. Jung called this public-facing identity the persona. The persona is the curated version of ourself we show the world. It's our collection of social masks. The professional, the easygoing friend, the good son or daughter. A persona isn't bad. In fact, it's a tool we need to function in society. The danger comes when we forget we're wearing a mask, when we mistake the mask for our actual face. That's when our entire identity gets wrapped up in this polished, but ultimately incomplete, version of ourselves. This has a direct link to the shadow. The more perfect and one-sided our persona is, the bigger and darker the shadow it casts. For example, if your persona is the selfless helper, then your shadow will be bursting with repressed needs. And if your persona is the cool-headed intellectual, well, your shadow will be a boiling pot of messy emotions. This is where self-sabotage can become a revolutionary act. When the persona gets too tight, our psyche, it will fight for balance. The shadow might erupt destructively to shatter that false mask and force us to face a more honest reality. It's a desperate jailbreak by your deeper self. Think of, that respected public figure who suddenly gets caught in a massive scandal. On the surface, it looks like pure self-destruction, but from a Jungian perspective, it could actually be the unconscious mind's revolt against a saintly persona that became a prison, forcing an encounter with all those human desires that were, well, locked away. The sabotage wasn't meant to destroy the life. No, it was meant to destroy the lie. This brings us to one of Jung's most important ideas, individuation. This is the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. It's the process of integrating all parts of yourself, the conscious and unconscious, persona and shadow, to become whole. The goal is to move beyond the social mask and live from a place of the true self, Jung's term for our total, unified personality. From this viewpoint, self-sabotage is a sign that your growth has stalled. You're stuck, over-identifying with a mask that no longer fits. Your repeated failures aren't a final verdict on your worth. They're a summons from your deeper self, a painful, chaotic, but ultimately life-giving call to stop performing and start, becoming. We assume we self-sabotage because, we're afraid to fail. We put things off because we're scared we won't be good enough. That's definitely part of it, but, it's only half the story. But Jung's work reveals a deeper, more unsettling truth. We often sabotage ourselves not because we're afraid of our limitations, but because we're terrified of our own potential. We fear success just as much as failure, maybe even more. This is the paradox at the very heart of self-destruction. As Jung wrote, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. We get in our own way because we fear the person we'd become if we actually succeeded. Why fear success? Because success means change. It means letting go of a familiar identity, even if that identity is one of misery, or, just getting by. There's a strange comfort in our known struggles. They've become part of our story. Being the one who's always broke, or unlucky in love. It's a defined role. It might be painful, but at least you know the lines. Success destroys that identity. If you get your finances in order, you're no longer the one who struggles. Who are you then? If you find a healthy partner, you're no longer the lonely one. What does that new life require? Success brings new responsibilities and new pressure. It's a psychological death of the old you. And our ego, it'll fight against that death. So self-sabotage is your mind trying to keep you safe in the familiar territory of your current problems. Your unconscious mind might engineer your failure to protect you from the perceived dangers of your own power. It whispers, "Don't go there. It's unknown. It's better to stay here, where at least we know the rules of this painful game." This is why we so often trip ourselves up, right at the finish line. You work hard to lose weight, and just as people start complimenting you, you go on a binge. The new identity of a healthy person is so threatening to the old one that your unconscious pulls you back. You're about to launch a business and you forget a critical deadline. Your sabotage is a preemptive strike against the terror of becoming the powerful, capable person you could be. So look at your patterns of self-sabotage and ask a different question. Don't just ask, "What failure am I avoiding?" Ask yourself, "What success am I terrified of? What magnificent version of myself am I refusing to become?" The answer might show you that your self-sabotage isn't proof of your weakness, but a twisted tribute to a power you're too afraid to claim. Understanding this is one thing, but understanding without action is just another form of being stuck. The point of this journey into the dark is to find our way back into the light, as a more whole, integrated person. This practical process is known as shadow work. Shadow work isn't about destroying the shadow. No, the shadow actually holds incredible energy and creativity. The goal is to bring its contents into the light of your awareness, to face, understand, and integrate their energy in a healthy way. It's the only true antidote to self-sabotage. This isn't a quick fix. It's a brave, lifelong practice. So here's how to start. Step 1. Become a detective in your own life. You need to become a curious, compassionate observer of yourself. Track your self-sabotage without the usual storm of self-criticism. See, judgment shoves the shadow deeper into hiding. But curiosity invites it out. Start a journal, a logbook of your psyche. When you catch yourself sabotaging, hit pause and write it down. Ask yourself, what was the trigger? What happened right before? What feeling were you trying to run from? Was it anxiety, fear, or boredom? What story did you tell yourself to justify it? Like, I'll do it tomorrow, or I deserve this. And, is this an old, familiar pattern? Now, pay close attention to your emotional overreactions. As Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead to an understanding of ourselves. When someone else's behavior makes you disproportionately angry or envious, well, it's a clue. You're likely projecting your own disowned shadow. So instead of judging them, ask yourself, what part of them am I refusing to see in myself? Alright, step 2. Talk to your shadow. Once you spot these shadow parts, engage with them. Approach them with a desire to understand, not to shame. Jung said, we cannot change anything until we accept it. A powerful technique for this is active imagination. This is like a waking dream, where you consciously enter a conversation with figures in your mind. Find a quiet place. Close your eyes and bring to mind a recent act of self-sabotage. Give the part of you responsible a shape, a name, a voice. Then, start a dialogue. Ask it questions. Listen to the answers. Write down the conversation. For example, you might ask the procrastinator, what are you so afraid of? What will happen if we finish this? Or, to the inner critic, whose voice are you really? Where did you learn this? And to the part that sabotages relationships, what are you trying to protect me from? The answers might shock you. This isn't about letting the shadow run the show. It's about building a respectful relationship with it. You're shifting from being a victim of your unconscious to being in conversation with it. Next, step 3. Listen to your dreams. Jung called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. He believed they're uncensored messages from our deeper self, often revealing our shadow. Keep a dream journal by your bed. Write down dreams the moment you wake up. Look for patterns. Are you always being chased? That might be a part of yourself you're running from. Do you dream of being unprepared for an exam? That could point to a fear of being judged. The dark figures in your dreams are often direct symbols of your shadow, appearing as threats, only because you haven't faced them. Step 4. Reclaim your power. The final goal is integration, consciously owning the traits you've pushed away, and finding healthy ways to use their energy. This is about finding the gold in the shadow. Every part of your shadow, no matter how dark it seems, contains a core of valuable energy. Repressed anger, for example, that comes out as passive aggression, can be integrated as healthy assertiveness and strong boundaries. Repressed greed that makes you sabotage your finances, well, that can be integrated as healthy ambition to build a good life. And repressed vulnerability that makes you push love away, that can be integrated as the key to deep, authentic connection. This is psychological alchemy. You're taking the raw lead of the shadow, and through awareness transforming it into gold. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. It's slow work, yes, but it's the only way out of the repeating cycle of self-sabotage and into a life of real freedom. If this journey into the hidden parts of the mind speaks to you, and you're ready to keep exploring, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into psychology and personal growth. This work is tough, and it really helps to know you're not walking the path alone. So, I'm genuinely curious. Share one pattern of self-sabotage you've noticed in your own life in the comments below. Sharing our stories breaks the shame that lets the shadow grow and helps us all realize we're not alone in this deeply human struggle. We've traveled into the dark corners of the mind, following the breadcrumbs of our self-sabotage back to their source. We've seen that this destructive pattern isn't a sign of weakness or a character flaw. It's a distress signal. A complex, meaningful message from the lost and forgotten parts of ourselves. Your self-sabotage is the voice of your shadow, crying out to be seen. It's the eruption of a complex, pointing to an old wound that needs healing. It is the rebellion of your true self against a mask that has become a prison. And it is a symptom of a deep fear, not just of failure, but of the brilliant, powerful person you're truly meant to be. The way to overcome self-sabotage isn't a battle to be won. It's not about fighting or destroying these parts of yourself. The path forward is one of integration. It's the brave work of turning to face your own darkness, not with a sword, but with an open hand. It's the lifelong journey of becoming whole by embracing all that you are, both the light and the dark. This journey never really ends. It's a continuous practice of awareness, compassion, and courage. But every step you take into your own shadow robs it of its power over you. Every moment of understanding loosens its grip. And with each piece of yourself that you reclaim from the darkness, you become more solid, more authentic, and more free. The parts of you that you fear the most don't hold your ruin, they hold the key to your wholeness. The journey into the dark is the only path to the light.